to us via WhatsApp on 0809 440 981. We're also streaming live on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. And Rotus is with me this morning. Rotus, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning to all our listeners out there. Good to be with you all again for a productive Tuesday, as they call it.
A productive Tuesday, exactly what I alluded to earlier in the morning. Mondays aren't exactly the most productive days. Tuesdays are when things actually get right into gear.
Indeed. Let's get it in.
All right, Rosie. So I saw this yesterday and my mouth was open. So inflation climbs past 22% in the month of April, 22.22% to be precise. So there's going to be a rise in food prices, non-alcoholic beverages, housing, water, electricity. Everything has pushed the inflation numbers up according to the data released by the National Bureau of Statistics for the month of April. Now, for you, what sticks out from these latest inflation figures?
Yeah, so it's that word sticks. So inflation in Nigeria has remained sticky. And when it's sticky, it means that it remains stubbornly at the levels where it is and continues to climb. So sticky inflation is not good for government policy. It's not good for households. It's not good for investments and savings. Sticky inflation is definitely not good for purchasing power. It's not good for the currency. We just continue to see basically challenges when it comes to the average Nigerian being able to stay above water. So it's sticky, remaining high, and causing problems for pretty much every sector of the economy that you can think of.
All right. Now we saw a jump on month inflation. What does that mean precisely?
Yeah, it's pretty alarming. So month on month more closely tracks prices of goods and services on a monthly basis. Because usually when we're looking at inflation, we're looking at year-on-year growth. But you also got to look at month-on-month numbers. And we saw month-on-month climb from 1.86% in March of 2023 to 1.91. Basically what that means is that you're seeing a rapid increase in the cost of goods and services, even on a monthly basis, because some choose to more closely track month on month than they do year on year. So it's not good, because it means that the price pressures that you and I are facing are essentially climbing at a rapid pace on a monthly basis. Now, don't forget, Ayo, we have a big decision that needs to be made next month. Next month, after the new administration is sworn in at the end of this month. And I wonder if they're looking at these numbers, or I don't know whether the next president has his economic team together, because there's this whole matter of fuel subsidies and removing them. And, Shokwe and I were talking about them when these numbers broke in the afternoon for the marketplace. And while I will remain consistent and say I support the removal of fuel subsidies because we've reached a point of no return, when you see inflation numbers like this, it tells you that, when you've got it's a price shock, right? So that means that you're going to see these numbers continue to climb. So especially, month on month figures. So that's something to look out for in a new month. But yeah, that spike for month on month is not healthy at all.
There's a message here on WhatsApp from Frank, and he says, talking about the sticky inflation, is that the reason why the Zamfara State governor doesn't want the president to release the CBN governor on study leave?
Who knows? It could be, that could likely be a reason. Who knows?
All right, Rosie. So still looking at the numbers that were released. We also saw that core inflation crossed 20% year on year. Can you walk us through this?
Yeah, so that's also alarming as well. Core inflation removes more volatile items like food from its tracking, and that's so it looks more at you know, gas, education, other items, right, that are less volatile. When I say volatile, less, that spike and so on. When you've got core inflation crossing 20% year on year, I mean, that essentially means that, because food is what primarily drove these inflation figures, right? Your food, and, we'll get to food inflation in a moment, but when you've got core inflation, that's your less volatile items outside of food. When you've got that also climbing as well, then that's real pressure on households. Look, we have a what is this thing? The 800 million, right? They've been talking about this, food, this national registry, which is supposed to be able to, give 5,000 naira to households, right? When you've got core inflation climbing to this level, these households, I mean, most of their money goes to food anyway, and so that's going to be eaten up. Yeah, but outside of that, clothing, clothing and other items. When that rises, that's just more pressure on households. And again, Nigeria is a tale of two cities, right? You've got the well-to-do who frankly aren't impacted by this, but then you've got the middle class who feels this, and then you particularly got people at the lowest level of the income scale who really feel this, who barely look. I don't know if you've gone out recently or paid for parking. You can't give 200 naira anymore, 100 naira to park. If you're going, just as an anecdote, right? If you're going out with your it's from even 500 naira now and up. That's where we are. That's
like the baseline,
right?
More or less.
Because of where the currency is. I don't even know if I don't think 50 naira downfall bus rides exist anymore. It's got to be at least 100 and up, even if you're going down a short distance. So those are the kind of things. Does 5 naira do anything? 10? Has anyone used a 5 naira, 10 naira, or 20 naira notes for anything at all? So there you are. That's what we're seeing.
All right. I'm actually glad, Rotus, that you mentioned households not too long ago, because I was going to address the gigantic elephant in the room, and that is the impact of these numbers on households across the country, as well as how it affects savings and investments of people.
Yeah, so your average household in Nigeria is what? 4 or 5 people, maybe 3 children, even if you have 2, 4 people in a household. You've got to feed all these people. You've got households that have, that are larger than others. So the income pool from which these folks can feed from, it continues to get smaller and smaller. I bought plantains. I love plantains. I boil mine and just, health updates for people. I know people love their fried plantains. They love their dodo, but if you can, boiled plantains are just as tasty, especially inside beans. Boiled plantains, ripe boiled plantains.
Rotus,
are you fried? Are you team fried?
Rotus, let's leave dodo on one side. Let's not go into dodo matters right now.
So I'll leave it. It's a sensitive topic. So, but a bunch of plantains now, what you used to buy, at least for me, where I am, what you used to buy for 2,000 naira is now 4,000. What you used to buy for 1,000 is now 2,000. Right. So I remember talking to a gentleman who said he hasn't bought plantains in like 2 or 3 years or 4 years. Because it's just too expensive to feed his family. So your staple foods, though, your beans, your rice, those items are continuing to squeeze households because feeding is one of the main things that they spend their money on. So the households are squeezed. Investments and savings, your real rate of return. That is, if you have I don't know, an investment instrument that's paying 10% and year-on-year inflation is 22%, then your real rate of return is negative 12, right? So, cash is what cash can buy is eroded. So again, the households, at least those at the lower scale of the income levels, will struggle to feed themselves above other things.
All right, let's take a message from WhatsApp. This is from Gilbert Musa, and he says, on Nigeria's rising inflation figures, let's ask ourselves what measures government and private sector effectively took since 1987-88 when inflation started rising in Nigeria. As a country, are we sincere in curbing inflation? The answer is blowing in the wind.
Great point there. Great point. Great message there from Gilbert. It's government. Anyway, they're leaving in less than 2 weeks, so we'll see. They never, by the way, they never ever addressed inflation. Well, not never, but they hardly do. At least the federal government, they don't. You don't really hear them put out statements when these numbers come out. But we'll see if anything changes today.
Talking about the government now, looking at now when they look at these numbers and see the upward trajectory in terms of the inflation figures, what will this mean, or what will be going through their minds, or what should be going through their minds, for the next monetary policy meeting?
Yeah, so the monetary policy side, remember yesterday we were talking about how they said they want to double down on inflation. They'll just continue to raise rates. That's the only thing they can do. Raise interest rates, try to cool down demand for loans and so on. But the issue is that they've been raising rates now since last year, and inflation continues to climb.
Obviously, that hasn't worked. So
yeah.
Why? So if raising the rates isn't working, then maybe, or should there be indications to look at it and say, okay, this isn't working. We're just raising, but it's not working. So maybe we should try another approach entirely.
So that approach has to come from the fiscal side. It's got to come from the other side of the coin. Your issues with insecurity and how it's impacting farmers. The lady who I bought plantains from, I was like, what is going on? Why is it? She says, well, she was telling me how plantains come from Edo State and rivers, and it's cost of transportation to bring them, and this and that, the supply of them has dropped, and so on and so forth. So you have to increase supply. You've got to increase the ability to store power to store foodstuffs so they don't spoil, protecting farmers and so on from insecurity, your legacy infrastructure issues, road transportation. You've got to improve, rail, so you have other means of traveling. Those are the kind of things that the fiscal side has to face. That's putting pressure on inflation in Nigeria.
All right, Rotus, now looking at everything that is going on right now, all the numbers, all the signs, what do they tell us about the trajectory for inflation for the rest of the year? Is there a silver lining somewhere here?
So that's why I brought up fuel subsidies. If they remove fuel subsidies, that's going to be another spike, because transportation folks will increase prices. Everything's got, fuel filters through. So, and then our import dependency, there's also the fact that we're importing inflation from other countries because we import so much. So where inflation is rising in your United States, your UK, and all these other places, that filters through. So you're paying more for what you're importing. Your currency also gets hit. So the trajectory is going to remain where it is, at least for this year. There are outfits that have averaged, saying that they're seeing average inflation of at least 20-21% for the rest of this year. So it's going to remain high. We just have to brace ourselves,
All right, we have to brace ourselves and tighten those jeans for the times ahead. All right, that's all we can take on Business Express this morning. Thank you very much, Rotus, for joining in.
Thanks, Ayo. Thank you, Glenn. Thanks for all the messages. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
All righty, have a great day, Rotus. All right, and that's all we can take on Business Express this morning. There's still so much to come on Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1 at 7:30. It'll be time for Freshly Pressed, and at 8:15, we'll get right into the grapevine for the best of entertaining news. Keep listening to Smooth 98.1. Hi.
Afternoon, dear.